Welcome back to Twisted Dice. I'm Darren.
And I'm Franco.
Today we're going to talk about Chaos.
Chaos.
But not any Chaos list. We're talking about a good tournament style winning Chaos list. So if you're new to Chaos or thinking about taking Chaos out on the battlefield and want to do a little bit better, this may be the video for yourself. We're going to talk about stratagems. We're going to talk about what's in Franco's army, how to play Franco's army, and how well you're doing.
Just going over it, yeah. We'll go through some examples of what I've gone up against, and just the idea of the list. If you're looking for a mixed Chaos list that you want to do well with, at least an idea of it.
If you like the content we're pushing out of Twisted Dice and you want to find out more what's going on with the channel, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. That's going to keep you updated on all the content, and plus it's going to make sure you don't miss out on any of the cool content that's coming out from ourselves, because we've got some cool battle reports lined up, and if, depending on when you're watching this, we're going to have Franco facing off against Stuart in a very, very sinister Chaos list.
I'm excited for that one. So the list is a mixed Chaos list. Everything is Nurgle, so we're keeping to a theme there as well as trying to be competitive. So we've got a Nurgle Demon Patrol detachment with BE'LAKOR, with Pool of Despair and Penumbral Curse as his psychic powers, 3 units of 3 Nurglings and 2 units of 5 Furies, of course with the marker Nurgle. We've also got a mixed Nurgle detachment, so that's got everything in it, obviously has a Nurgle keyword. We've got Epidemius, we've got another unit of 5 Furies and marker Nurgle, a unit of 2 Chaos Spawn, 2 separate individual Chaos Spawns, 2 Fetid Bloat Drones with Flesh Mowers, and then 2 Plague Burst Crawlers with Entropy Cannons and Heavy Sluggers. And then to top the list off, we've got the big man himself, Mortarion, in the Supreme Command detachment. He's got the Miasma Pestilence, Gift of Contagions, and Gift of Plague Psychic powers. So we've got the Nurgle Demon Patrol in there. We've got BE'LAKOR. BE'LAKOR he's an animal, he's a beast. You know, he's a combat threat. You have to deal with him, and he's fairly tough. You know, so he's -1 to hit innately. You can't reroll hit rolls against him innately, and he's -1 to wound against shooting. He can ignore invuns in combat. D3+3 damage, strength 12 -4. The guy is an animal. You know, Pool of Despair. So I can pick an ability depending if I beat an opponent's leadership on 3 dice. I can make it fight last, which is great. You know, I can go into multiple combats and not have to worry about interruptions so much. You can also turn off things like aura abilities, which is great for like an obsec aura. So it just allows me to just have a bit of utility in there. Again, another great beast. He also teams up very well with Mortarion, but we'll get into that in a little bit when we talk about Mortarion. We've got the 3 units of Nurglings in there. Now they're very important. They forward deploy, which allows me to get early board control, be on mid objectives. They've got obsec, you know, it's the only source of obsec in the list. The amount of times I can nick an objective with 1 Nurgling is insane. They are fairly tough as well, even though they're only toughness 2. You know, the fact that they have the 5 up from Run, the 5 up from paint, and 4 wounds apiece. You have to deal with them, and you can't just chuck normal light fire into them because they will not go down. And because there's only 3 leadership tests, they're not really going to fail them. So they're very important. We've also got 2 units of 5 Furies in there, along with another unit of 5 Furies in the other detachment. They're my only real source of infantry. I always take Retrieve Altarius data, so they always get that. I normally deep strike 2 of the units, but having speed for a 12-inch movement with fly for 45 points for 5 models, they're a steal. They do so much. They're just a utility unit. They're great for also zoning out, which this list does very, very well. So yeah, the Furies are great. The Nurglings are really good. BE'LAKOR does what BE'LAKOR does. So next we have the Nurgle, mixed Nurgle detachment. Epidemius is probably the linchpin of the list. So while he's on the board, which he's always protected, so he generally never dies, we've got his tally, and we can get reroll hit rolls of 1 from the tally for everything that's a Nurgle Demon, which just boosts things like the Bloat Drones with their mowers, and Plague Burst Crawlers just makes them a bit more reliable. It also helps out things like the Nurglings and the Furies, not massively, but he also, you know, +1 toughness is huge. Toughness 8 BE'LAKOR, toughness 9 Mortarion, toughness 9 Plague Burst Crawlers, toughness 8 Fetid Bloat Drones. It's great. +1 strength to make, say, example, the Bloat Drones as well at strength 8 with their mowers, +1 attack as well. So he just infinitely buffs the entire list depending on how much I kill. We've also got the Spawn. The reason the Spawn are in there is, again, another utility unit for things like engage, being able to zone out again, to tie stuff up. You know, Spawn are very handy. They've got 4 wounds apiece and they're toughness 5. They've only got a 5+ armor save, But, you know, they won't just fall down to a bolter. You've got to put a little bit of dedicated firepower into them. They're also quite handy in combat. You know, they've got 2d3 attacks. You know, they've got their table where they can become AP -4, they can get 3d3 attacks, or they can reroll wound rolls. They're -2 and 2 damage. So they're not to be sneezed at. They can actually do quite a nice little bit of work. We've also got the drones, the 2 drones with the mowers. Fantastic units. I mean, they're not underrated. Everyone knows how good they are, but they just do so much. They're fast, they've got 10-inch movement, they fly, 12 attacks at strength 7, -2, 2 damage. They reroll wound rolls of 1. Again, epidemics can make them strength 8, can give them an extra attack for 15 attacks, as well as rerolling hit rolls of 1, which once they get all that stuff up, they're very hard to take down. They hit like a truck anyway. They just go through so many different things. And the other thing that is so good about them is they're very good at protecting objectives. No one really wants to get in combat with them unless they reduce damage, in which case you reduce the effectiveness of them, but there's not loads of stuff that does that. And the fact that you can sit on the objective and then use a stratagem to be able to heroic intervene with them up to 6 inches. Once someone knows you can do that, you really scare people off of certain areas of the board. And they're very good for hanging around Nurglings, hanging around Furies, even hanging around BE'LAKOR and MORTARION, because if you're going to charge, you can make it so the way they charge, you're always going to get either heroic by one of the big guys or one of the drones. So you're just controlling what your opponent does in every phase of the game. We've also got the Plague Burst Crawlers. That speaks for themselves. You know, they're amazing, they're tough, they hold the backfield very well. They've got their mortars, so it gives me good defense against little units hiding about. It also gives me an answer, or helps give me an answer in defense against things like Hive Guard, as well as other things that can pre-forward deploy. Allows me to be able to move them off before I move forward. They've also got the entry cannon, so it gives me a little bit of anti-tank at range. Not a lot, but again, at reroll hit rolls of 1, once the tally starts working up, it just makes them so reliable. And again, they're not easy to bring down. They're fairly tough. You know, -1 damage, toughness 8, 12 wounds, and with the 3 up, 5 up. And again, the ability to get toughness 9 on them is actually, it's nuts, it's insane. And then we've got the big man himself, we've got Mortarion. Now, the reason this list works is because BE'LAKOR and Mortarion complement each other very nicely. You can put them both in your opponent's phase. They have to deal with one. Very few people can split their firepower and bring even one of them down in a turn. And Mortarion, I think people they underestimate just how tough he really is. Because he's toughness 8, toughness 9 if the tally goes up, 3 up armor, 4 up invuln, 5 up for no pain, and reduces damage by 1. He does not go down very easily. Like I don't think I've ever lost him from 18 wounds to 0 in a turn, which is huge. As well as that, we always take Gloaming Bloat as his optional play company trait. So we use him just to throw up the boards alongside BE'LAKOR, and then within 9 inches or 12 inches with Gifts of Plagues, which is a psychic power we can increase the range of the contagion by. You can't reroll hit rolls, you can't reroll wound rolls, and he can stop Overwatch and setting to defend, which is come in handy a lot if you need to run into a unit that has a lot of auto hits, or an army that can increase their hits on their Overwatch. He just denies that completely. He literally shuts down your opponent's list so much. If he gets in combat, he generally kills whatever he touches. And again, having him and BE'LAKOR together, just hitting the same flank or straight down the centre, you have to deal with that. Very hard to deal with. So the list, just overall, so much synergy. Everything has a job, everything has a place, and everything just works together. You know, the monsters do a lot of the killing, the Plague Burst Crawlers, the drones, to raise that tally up. And then on the tally, Nurglings and Furies are just, they're tough for the kill. They're scoring points as well as, you know, me killing stuff as well. And they take the board, and then again the spawn just being very good utilities, can perform multiple different tasks. Talking about secondaries for the list, I normally always take at least 2 of the same ones. So Engage and Retrieve Octarius Data are 2 very good ones. Retrieve because I'll normally spend 2 CP to deep strike 2 units of my Furies, so we'll be able to bring them into one of the other corners, and then 1 unit starts on the board, early retrieves, and then I'll move forward either into a side zone or one of the forward zones to get that retrieve. And then again, like I said, we bring down the other 2 units and they start grabbing the other retrieves. I think I've had 1 game where I haven't got the full 12 points in that. So it's just a really easy secondary for that list. The other one is Engage because, again, the Nurglings start forwards. so that we can easily get engaged with them. The spawn can move about. Plague Burst Crawlers and drones can also spread in the back zone, as well as the drones pushing forward. And BE'LAKOR and MORTARION, you know, they're going forward anyway, so they're grabbing it. And BE'LAKOR and MORTARION, actually, if they can't bring them down, which they're not very easy to bring down, they will hold them zones on their own. So again, it's very hard for me to not get between 12 to 15 points in that. You just got to make sure you're always remembering to do it. Even if you have to just accept you're only going to get 2 points because you've got to send certain things forward and you can't really get into one zone. And then the third one I like to keep open. Priority targets is always one you take on that mission because it's just too good. You hold your own objective for 3 points. Direct assault is another mission secondary, which is nice to hold the middle. You're very tough, like I said. You throwing the monsters up forward, and then you're using things like Nurglings or drones or Plague Burst Crawlers to hold that center. And they're not really able to deal with the stuff in the center because they've got to deal with the big stuff in front of them. Other ones I tend to leave depending on my opponent's list. So, for example, Bring It Down, or no, Prisoners, Stranglehold, or Grind Them Down. With Stranglehold, you sacrifice that for Engage if you don't think you can get Engage, or if you think you can get Stranglehold easier. But Grind Them Down is one that I do pick on occasion, depending on how much stuff my opponent has, how tough they are, how killy they are. If I think I can outkill them in a turn, then generally Grind Them Down, is a very good one to go with. And Retrieve as well, sometimes I'll swap out for Banners instead. If I think that my opponent can zone me out of the other two zones quite easily, but I don't think they're coming forward very well. Like, for example, I played a Deathwing army. I knew that I could just hold them in the corner and do banners. I played a 16 Hive Guard list, which again, I was able to do the same thing, hold them in the corner and just raid my banners. So they're the secondaries we generally tend to go with. I think I've had one game where I've scored less than 78 points. Most games we score high 80s, low to mid to high 90s. We've hit 100 as well once. So you've always got to remember, this list plays secondaries quite well. It's built into certain secondaries. It also plays primary very well because obviously, again, Nurglings on the middle board, the big monsters moving up to be able to keep things away from the objectives. So stratagems we normally use with this list. Obviously, you've got your command reroll. Normally, I tend to use that on the charges for certain things, or the Plague Burst Crawlers and Mortars. We also use Disgusting Force on the Mortar for 3 damage on the Mortars, and the little Mortal Wound Explosion as well. That's not too important, but the 3 damage on one of the Mortars, it can really up the damage you can do early against things like Hive Guard, or like taking the last wounds off of certain vehicles. I love Frenetic Bloodlust as well for BE'LAKOR. That ability to fight twice with him. It is 3 CP, so it is pricey, but I've had games where he's gone into 2 different units, wiped one off, and then wiped another off with that strat. So it just ups the level of damage you can do. We can also heal BE'LAKOR for one of the Nurgle Demon strats for D3 wounds. It's not bad if you can knock him up into a bracket, or just to make it a bit harder to take him down. So there's some of the strats I commonly tend to use. We also do like I think it's Dark Cravings, the 6-inch move, 6-inch heroic intervention on one of the drones. It's a fantastic secondary. Being able to control certain objectives. We can also heal drones as well. Every time they kill a model in combat for 1 CP, they gain a wound back up to 3. Again, that's coming very much handy because drones are not easy to take down, especially when they're at toughness 8. So even an extra 1 or 2 wounds just makes them that little bit harder to bring down. Warp Surge as well, a demon strat, say on one of the units of Nurglings or one of the units of Furies to knock them up to a 4+ invulnerable save, just to increase the likeliness of them staying around. So matchups we tend to have a hard time with. Drukhari will always be a hard matchup. They're very good, possibly the best faction in the game right now. 16 Hive Guard can be a tough one if you don't play it properly. You've got to deploy right, and you've just got to be aggressive. You've got to hem them in the corner. Use Mortarion just to shut them down with their rerolls. The other hard matchup, and I actually think is the hardest matchup for the list, is the Dreadnought matchup. Dreadnoughts are very good. They can be very uninteractive, especially on like Hammer and Anvil deployment. Their firepower is just very, very good, and they're just very good into you because they're very good into demons anyway. They can do extra damage to you on depending kind of what they do, the way they build their list, but they're just very good overall. I find Admech, depending on the list, Admech can still be good, but less of a threat than they used to be. The Orc lists are very good. Kill rigs are very, very good, and they can definitely do some damage. But Yeah, they tend to be the hardest matchups for the list. I think another matchup that's quite difficult if you don't play it properly is the Deathwing matchup. Deathwing are very hard. Like, I'm quite killy, but I bounce off them. I just managed to hold that very well. So they're the hard matchups we tend to have with this.
So that's Franco's list in a nutshell. And you've been doing really, really well with this list.
Yeah, we got second at RGT a few weeks ago. We got 5th place out of 30 at an RTT the other week. And we've got another RTT coming up. And even just outside of tournaments, I'm doing very well with it. So it's a very good list. I recommend it for anyone who loves their Chaos. I think it's one of the best ways you can go with Chaos at the moment.
It's definitely a very, very elite army. And you hate that word.
Everyone used to say to me, you know, it's a very elite army. And I used to think, no, it's not. But I said it out earlier and I was like, oh, it's actually quite small. But it's deceiving just how tough it can be. So it's not, even though it's not got loads of models, it's still a very tough list. It's a very good list. And it is super strong. So
let us know in the comments down below what you think of Franco's list. If there's anything in there that you think we could add to this list to make it even stronger than it currently is. Now, if you like the content we're pushing out Twisted Dice and you want to be a superstar and become a Twisted Cult member, please do hit that like and subscribe. It helps us out massively and we really do appreciate it.
We do.
Hopefully, we'll catch you all again on another battle report, tactic guide. We'll see you then.